time talking about attachment because we have found there are many outcomes of attachment. Not only does the relationship you have with your caregiver impact the relationship with teachers, peers, romantic partnerships, and your own children someday, but we find infants that have a secure attachment tend to display higher levels of sociability and social competence in childhood. In fact, they display lower behavioral problems like aggression or anxiety in their childhood. We also find infants that have more secure attachment, when they become toddlers and preschoolers, they show more enthusiasm and higher levels of playfulness. They're just more interested in playing. They also have more affective expressions. They're more in tune with their emotions. We also find that this infant attachment can relate to both preschool, elementary, and late elementary problem-solving ability and executive capacity. It helps them cognitively with how they problem solve and think about new skills. And we also find secure attachments related to preschool, child, and adolescent persistence, independence, and achievement motivation. That is the idea that those with more secure attachment are happy being independent. They are happy being on their own sometimes, but also happy being with others. They will try more at tasks that are difficult, and they're actually interested in trying more at school. So we can see here that the secure attachment actually has a variety of positive outcomes associated with it, which is why we're so interested in measuring attachment, as we know it's a predictor of lots of good things to come. And one of the areas of attachment that I like to talk about is how attachment can really happen in schools. So Bob Pianta and Sarah Rimm-Kaufman have really taken the theoretical work on infant caregiver attachment and transformed it into understanding the teacher-child relationships, particularly in an elementary school. And so they've looked at how this attachment style within schools can really play out, and how we can have different types of children in the same classroom with the same teacher, and how this can impact things such as classroom climate. So classroom climate is the idea of how supportive or friendly a classroom is versus how distant, versus how authoritarian, or versus how strict or judgmental a classroom is. And so they really looked at three subtypes of teacher-child relationships, known as close, conflicted, and dependent. In a closed teacher-child relationship, this is similar to secure or autonomous attachment. And so this is when there is a mutual, a positive effect between a student and a teacher. Meaning when they walk into the room and see each other, they smile and say good morning. And so they're happy to see each other. They like being in the same room as each other. It's a good time. We find that in this close relationship, there'll be a lot of support and encouragement. So the teacher should be encouraging the student and supporting them. But we also find when the teacher's even writing on the board or asking students to do an activity, the student will oblige and will expect and they understand the expectations the teacher puts on them, so they'll pay attention or they'll raise their hand, and they're supporting the teacher in their learning as well. We also find that both of them will anticipate the expectations and needs of one another. The teacher will be aware if the child is struggling, and they'll rephrase something, or they'll check in with them at their desk. The student will anticipate the teacher needs a volunteer or needs certain work to be done, so they understand what the teacher wants them to do, and the teacher understands what the student needs. This is a very positive relationship. We find the close relationship is affiliated with lots of good things, lots of achievement, lots of engagement in school, with the idea of liking school and wanting to go further in school. So it's all around a good thing. Then we have the conflicted teacher-child relationships. And this is usually marked by mutual irritation, sometimes one-sided irritation though. This is when you see the student walk into the room and you're an educator, you say, oh, not this student today, I'm going to have such a hard day today. Or when the student thinks of a school, they say, oh, not that teacher is such a pain. And they don't like each other. This fosters a very antagonistic relationship. We often find this is when the student is challenging the teacher's authority. Either they're challenging them cognitively, like trying to find their mistakes in what they're teaching, or they just don't believe that there's any purpose behind what they're teaching. They don't think it's valuable in what they're teaching, or they're challenging their behavioral authority. If the teacher says sit in your seat, the student doesn't want to sit in their seat, or the teacher says be quiet, the student doesn't want to be quiet. So they can challenge their behavioral authority or challenge their cognitive academic authority. We also find in some cases the teacher may not be allowing the child to be who they want to be. Maybe the child just needs to be a little bit more active in the classroom, or they need a different type of stimulation. So it could definitely be on that side. But overall, this is marked by criticism of one another. The teacher is more critical of what the student is doing, and the student is certainly more critical of what the teacher is doing. And finally, a lesser studied but still prominent relationship is the dependent teacher-child relationship. And this is usually a very non-reciprocal relationship. What we often find here is the student is very clingy towards the teacher. So this is a student that wants the teacher to be their own private tutor. They want to have one-on-one conversation with the teacher in a classroom with many children. They want to sit next to them. They want the teacher to come over and help them with everything. Maybe at recess or at lunchtime, they don't want to talk to other kids. They just want to talk to the teacher. When they're given work to do, they don't want to do it themselves. They want the teacher to walk them through everything. And so these students may also become very possessive if the teacher starts to spend more time with other kids. They may cling on to teachers. In the young elementary ages, these may be students who physically, actually, literally cling on to teachers. So these children often have what's called low self-efficacy. They don't believe they can do it on their own. They're very overly dependent. They need the teacher to guide them. And they may do what we see as protest cries against the teacher when the teacher needs to move around the classroom or put their attention elsewhere. And so this is often the child who had a very anxious, ambivalent, resistant attachment style and was very overly distressed when their parent left the room, and another very overly distressed when they don't get the attention they want from the teacher. They also may be a child who just didn't get enough attention at home, and they are using this as an outlet to get that attention.